Hello YouTube, this is Carrie, and I've been meaning to make a video about this for a while now because this has pretty much been the roughest 2 weeks of this entire process. And this happened like a week and a half ago, but it's just taken me this long to finally be able to make a video. Basically, I've had to come to the unfortunate realization and reality that I'm not passable. So let me tell the story here. Basically, it all started because for whatever reason, for the past month or so, I've been looking in the mirror and my face has just been looking worse and worse to myself. I think it might just be a product of losing weight. Basically, for some reason, all of the bulk is coming out of my face first, which I have a very angular face, so it's just making me, when I look in the mirror, I don't see a girl anymore. I was just seeing a man. But the thing is, I got through this in the past by telling myself, it's okay, you're accepted at work, people don't care, you're passing, the only person who sees this is you. And everybody on the internet kept telling me, it's just you. Nobody else sees it. I look at you and all I see is a beautiful woman. And basically, things started happening at work that made me question that. I started noticing that people weren't treating me in a very normal way. I noticed that when my supervisor was talking to the waitresses and when the waitresses were talking to each other, there was just an effortlessness in their conversation. It's just, they talk like, there's a relaxation in it. It's like they know that they're supposed to be talking to each other and they're on a level playing field. Where when these same people turned and talked to me, they gave me kind of this infantilizing, hi, how are you doing? Sort of like special snowflake tone of voice, like they were talking to a 6-year-old. You could tell that to them, in their mind, they weren't just seeing me as a normal person. They were very clearly talking to me as though I was someone different. That started making me wonder, am I really passing? And then there was an incident where at work, there was one poker table where they randomly got into a discussion about the bathrooms, and they were saying that the bathrooms are very nice, and, well, the women did at least. And the guys started saying, well, the men's bathroom isn't exactly nice. There's kind of splatter, the usual situation, and I, still being under the delusion that everybody just saw me as a normal woman, chimed in and said, yeah, the women's bathrooms are really nice though, I really love their open layout with all the mirrors. It just feels very clean and very modern. And everybody stared at me like I was a weirdo. And it got really quiet at the table. And I was like, what? They looked at me like I was saying something weird, as if it would be weird for them to see me talking about the women's bathroom for some reason. So that made me wonder if they knew. And, well, I was having one of those rough nights where I couldn't see anything but a man in the mirror. And because my self-esteem was so down in the gutter, I asked my supervisor, the supervisor who I talked about last time, who I'm out to, who knew me back at my job in Cleveland, I said, she asked me, she could tell something was wrong with me. She asked what was wrong. And I said, I'm having one of those nights where I can't see anything but a man in the mirror, and my self-critical mind is getting to me, and I'm afraid that it's just blatantly obvious to everybody, and that I'm nothing but this poker room's token tranny that everybody has to accept. And she does not sugarcoat anything. She said, I'm not going to lie to you, there are some people here who are not okay with it. But there are other people here who would take a bullet for you. Like your direct shift manager, he knows, he said if anyone ever has a problem with me, that I tell him immediately and he'll deal with it. He will not tolerate anything like that. But the thing is, she never addressed my question on passability. She never responded to me saying, I'm afraid that it's blatantly obvious that I'm trans. She just said, you're too hard on yourself. But she didn't say, no, you don't look blatantly trans. So, trust me, I read the subtext into that, and I knew it's because she's not a liar, so it really is obvious to her. And then something happened, I forget whether it was before or after, but for the first time in a year, I got misgendered. I got called he. And then, unfortunately, after that awful night where, I had the breakdown where I could only see a man in the mirror, and I ended up asking my supervisor, and, she wouldn't console me on that. After breaking down that night, 2 nights later, I got called he twice. And it was by a player who is consistently one of my biggest tippers and who's the nicest to me. It was just a genuine slip. It wasn't just somebody being an asshole deliberately. It hurts the most when it's from people who care about you and would never do anything to hurt you, because then they're not doing it with malintent. So you can't write it off as just somebody who heard through the grapevine and decided to deliberately be an asshole to you, even if you are passable. This was someone who was really nice to me, so there's no other explanation except it was a genuine slip. For that brief moment, she thought that I was male and forgot. And she corrected herself. She said he and then said, oh, I'm sorry, I mean she. God, that hurt. So, unfortunately, I've had to face the reality after 9 months at work of being under the assumption that I was stealth and under the assumption that I was just accepted unconditionally as a woman by people and just seen as a normal woman. I was wrong this whole time, And even in my last video where I found out that I wasn't stealth, I was still kind of trying to sugarcoat it in my mind. It's like, okay, well, I know I'm not stealth, but it's probably just because people who knew me before told people. Because there are 2 or 3 people who I work with now who also worked with me back then. And, maybe a few people can tell based on my appearance, but surely it's not everyone. Surely I'm stealth to most people. Getting misgendered kind of threw that out the window, and I've had to come to the unfortunate realization that the people that I'm stealth to and who just see me as a normal woman are not the majority. So, being misgendered especially hurt, because I thought that I was never going to hear that word again. I thought I was long past that point. And getting called he is so much worse than just being clocked as trans and people asking you, were you a trans woman? Because then they're still seeing me as a woman. Even if they can see transy features, they're still seeing me as a woman. Where being misgendered means they thought that I was a guy. So, that just hurts more than anything, because it means after 2.5 years of hormones, after being fired from 2 jobs because of either distress from gender identity, feeling like I would never get there, or just blatant discrimination because people just couldn't handle me. After all that I fought through, I thought that I was finally at the end, that I would never have to worry about gender again. I'd never have to worry about somebody else and their bullshit opinion on my appearance being able to take away my identity. I was wrong. People can still look at me and see that I'm trans, and therefore decide whether or not I deserve to be female by their standards. It's not supposed to be this way. Gender is supposed to be incidental. It's supposed to be something that you just are. That it's just an incidental part of your life that you're automatically accepted as, automatically seen as, no matter what. And I still can't do that. This is despite me conforming to a very feminine ideal of appearance. I wear makeup every single night at work. And, I have my hair long. Other women, if they cut their hair short, or if they decided to not wear makeup, or, they decided to wear baggy, frumpy clothes, they would still just be women. Because it's something, God forbid, that is unchangeable, unquestionable. It's just a fact of their life. I still don't have that freedom. I have to conform to this narrow set of gendered ideals just in order to be accepted as female by people at all. If I were to cut my hair, I would go back to being gendered male by people. If I were to not wear makeup, I imagine I'd probably get misgendered even more. And it's just such a bummer, I thought I was finally past this. Back in February and March, I was starting to think that I was finally done, that, my gender was going to be something unquestionable for the rest of my life, and that I was never going to have to worry about not being true to myself ever again. And this really hurts because, honestly, transition has not cured my body dysphoria at all. I don't hate some parts of my body as much as I used to. I'm really grateful that I have smooth skin now. And that I actually do have a feminine shape now. That I have breasts and a waist and actual, hip and thigh fat. But in terms of just being able to look in the mirror and see a woman unquestionably, I am still torn up over that almost every single day. And what kept me going for so long was believing that it was just me who saw that, where now it's become apparent that it's not. As I talked about in my facial feminization surgery video. So, I'm past the point where I'm completely depressed about this and crying, and this is what I wrote the day after that, the night that had happened. I wrote on Facebook, I said, "My transition is a failure. I'll never be anything but a worthless freak." That's what it feels like to me, I didn't transition to be some he, she thing that's part male and part female, and people could see either way depending on whether they're feeling accepting. I transitioned because I wanted to just be female, unquestionably. Like every other woman in the entire world just takes for granted on a daily basis. And they don't have to, every time they go shopping, worry that people are staring at them, specifically because they look between genders. Worried that every single stare they get is because people are mentally invalidating them about that. It's just not, gender is just not something that's meant to be questioned like this. And it just especially hurts because, and this is why I found out why I have so many emotional issues with this whole not passing thing, is I kept myself in the closet specifically because I believed that I would never pass. And that if I did transition, I would never be doing anything but making myself a freak. I've known that I was trans and that I wanted to be female since I was 14 years old. Other trans people just have difficulty because they're not sure if they're trans or not. I knew. It's just that I believed that it was impossible for me because I was so large built and so guyish looking. And so this is almost like a validation of all those mean, invalidating voices telling me that I would never succeed, that I'd never really be a woman. I've been able to quell this freak out and make myself feel a bit better by realizing that, I guess what finally did it is that I read a post on Tumblr where there was a very selfish trans person who, said, she was calling people transphobic because they said, I'm an ally, I support trans people, but they wouldn't donate to her surgery fund. And she called them a transphobe because of that. And it's like, fuck you. Are you serious? You give our entire community a bad name. You know, allies are like the most important thing that we have. How dare you call them transphobes just because they decide not to donate to your special cause, when there's like hundreds of equally worthy causes that they choose not to donate to every day, and it has nothing to do with them hating people who are affected by disaster or poverty. It's just because they don't want to give money, and that's their decision. So that got me thinking. At the same time as I am whining and complaining about me not being able to see a woman in the mirror, there are people every day out there in the world who are going hungry. There's trans people every single day who are homeless, who are disowned by their families, who never even have a hope of passing to anyone, regardless of how long they've been on hormones, and can't ever hope to afford surgery. There's trans people who cannot find employment. There's people who are, you know, having to resort to sex work to survive. And I guess I realized, in the grand scheme of things, me complaining about not being passable doesn't really seem like I have a right to complain, even though it hurts me very much personally. I don't have the right to whine and complain and isolate myself in this self-hating spiral just because of that. Because all things considered, I am very privileged. Yes, I was fired from 2 jobs for being trans. Yes, I lost my entire savings. But in the end, it did work out. Look at where I am now. My own apartment, which I'm paying for with my own money, and I'm able to afford. Look at what's outside. A car that I am able to afford with my own money and pay for the lease and pay for the insurance for. I have a stable job, making enough money to support me. And not only that, enough money to have hope of one day being able to afford gender confirming surgery. This is the difference, is that even though my present situation kind of sucks in terms of feeling unpassable and still not being able to just be myself unquestionably, I actually have hope of being able to afford gender confirming surgery. So as much as tempting as it is to get down on myself and whine about how much my life sucks, in the grand scheme of things, my life does not suck. I am very privileged. And it's selfish of me to not acknowledge that. So yes, of course I have a right to feel bad. I mean, everybody has a right, even if they have privileges, to feel bad. But in the grand scheme of things, things really aren't all that bad. I have food, I have a roof over my head, I have a job, and God forbid, my supervisor told me that my direct shift manager would take a bullet for me if anybody had a problem with me. So I have a stable job, and I'm not in danger of getting fired just because people know that I'm trans, or just because customers might have a problem with me. I have people who have my back, people who love me. I have a loving mother who is 100% behind me and is my biggest fan. She offered to let me move back in with her after I was fired from the Golden Nugget in Atlantic City. So really, I should be so grateful to have all these things. And ultimately, that was what pulled me out of this self-hating, depressive spiral, is just being able to feel like, as bad as things may be now, I have hope. And that is something that I should be unfathomably thankful for. And honestly, maybe it even feels a bit selfish of me to be considering spending $15,000 just to make my face look better, when there's people who are going hungry, and there's people who can't even afford basic trans expenses like hormones and doctor's visits, who are disowned by their families. So trust me, once this surgery business is out of the way, and I've gotten my own personal demons dealt with, especially if I get promoted to full-time at work, I will be making something like $15,000 a year extra that I don't even know what to do with. because I'm a low maintenance person. For God's sake, I'm happy now. And that's living in a 1-bedroom apartment with basically no entertainment but my computer and the internet. And that's all I need. So, once I have all that extra income, I think that's going to be my goal, is I am going to put all of it towards helping other trans people who were disowned by their families, who can't ever hope to afford surgery. I want to use the privilege that's been given to me to help others. And another thing is to continue to speak out and to show that, yes, I am here, I am transgender, I am visibly trans, apparently, and guess what? I exist, and my life matters. I really don't know what more to say. This has been such an ridiculously emotional journey for me. It's been the lowest lows followed by, I won't say I'm exactly happy, I'm still just not as depressed as I was, I guess, just kind of lingering through life in a demi-happy, demi-sad melancholy, trying to make the best of each day as it comes. I have started playing volleyball with friends from work twice a week, so that at least gives me an opportunity to get out of the house and do something fun. And again, I'm just trying to focus on those positive moments and the good things in my life instead of constantly dwelling on this one thing that is still bad, as persistent and as, all-consuming as it feels. Something that makes me worry every single time I leave the house, every single time I go to work, every single time I look in the mirror. Even despite that, I can still try to be happy the best I can. I don't know what more I can say. Again, this is just a complicated thing and it's hard to accept, but life goes on. Anyway, thanks for watching. If anybody is still watching at the 22-minute mark, thank you. Talk to you later.